Hello everyone and welcome to the next tutorial here on Ducttapestuff. Today is my 2-year anniversary of being here on YouTube. So it was 2 years ago to the day that I created the channel named Ducttapestuff. So this is my 2-year anniversary video. And before we get started on this tutorial, we do have 2 birthdays today. So happy birthday, I am Kino, as well as Yankees245. So hope you guys enjoy this tutorial that you're about to see. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make a holder for an iPod Touch or an iTouch. And that's pretty much what I have here in this paper here. I don't own an iPhone or iTouch or anything like that, so I actually had to go online and actually make a piece of paper that's the exact measurements of the iPod Touch. That's what I'm going to be using as my template for this video. If you have one, obviously at home, then you can it'll be much easier to make a case for. But this is a life-size piece of paper with obviously with the screen in there and the button and everything of a iPod Touch, so that's what I'm going to be using for my template. If you are making this for like an iPhone or something like that, or like a younger generation of an iPod Touch, you may have to adjust the measurements a little bit, just because Apple has made some of them a little bit thicker, a little bit shorter, depending on the screens of different sizes, depending on what size, what generation you have. So just make sure you have the right measurements before you actually make one for the model that you have. So let's get started on our first step. Alright, the length of the iPod Touch is a little less than 4.5 inches, so basically what our first step is going to do is we're going to cut out 4 strips of tape that are 4.5 inches long each. And we're going to take our first 2 strips here. I'm using that digital camo duct tape. Stick the 2 strips directly on top of each other, just like that. We're going to take our third strip, and this is where you're going to take either your model here, in this case my template, and I'm going to line up the top here a little bit so that it's a little bit higher than the actual, supposedly the iPod Touch that I have here. Make sure it's a little bit higher. I'd say about, maybe about a couple centimeters. You're going to take your third strip and you're going to apply it so that the bottom here comes past the iPod Touch just by a few centimeters, just like here on the top. And they're roughly about a little less than 2.5 inches wide, so I pretty much made 2.5 inches for the size here, and then that'll be enough for the width of your iPod Touch. So you're going to take those 3 strips, flip them over. You're going to take your 4th strip here, and you're going to cover up the rest of the sticky side just like this. So now basically you have your one piece. Basically what you're going to do for your second step is you're just going to make an exact duplicate of this sheet here. So cut out 4 more strips and then make another sheet just like this. So do that now. Alright, so after you've gotten your 2 sheets, the next thing you're going to do is just lay them right on top of each other just like this. Make sure they're exactly the same. You're going to cut out 3 strips of tape. 2 of them are 4.5 inches long, and one of them is 2.5 inches long. And basically what we're going to do is just seal up the holder here on 3 sides. So just stick it on one side, about halfway, flip the whole thing over, fold it back around, and stick it back just like that. Come over to the other side here, because obviously this side is still open. You're going to take your second 4.5 inch strip, about half of it on this side of the holder, then flip it over, fold it back around on the back side. Next we're going to seal up what's going to be the bottom of the iPod Touch holder. So, and then just seal it up on the back here, or the bottom. So that's basically the holder for the iPod Touch. And obviously, if you have yours, you can just slip it in and make sure that it does fit. Obviously, this piece of paper has practically no depth to it whatsoever, but your iPod Touch is going to have some depth to it, so that's going to fill it in just a little bit. So we'll just slide it in there, make sure that it does fit, and then we'll move on to cutting the holes for the screen and all that fun stuff that's coming up next. So that'll be our next step. Basically what I do when I want to cut the holes for the screen and for the camera here on the front and the button, basically what I do is just lay the iPod Touch here, or just the template for it, right on top where it's going to be. And remember, it's going to go all the way to the bottom here, so you're not going to line up right in the middle, because it's obviously going to slide down. So put it where it's going to end up in the holder. And then what I'm going to do with this X-Acto knife is I'm just going to mark where those 4 points are for the screen. Obviously, if you have your iPod Touch sitting here, you're not going to be able to obviously poke holes through it. But basically what you're going to do is just eyeball it. Or what you can do is draw two lines coming from the sides here, and where those two lines intersect is where your point is going to be. And obviously it's going to be the same for all the way on all four sides. For the button here, you can just slide your iPod in, and you can basically just feel where the button is, so you can kind of just make a small mark there where you know where that is. And obviously the same for the camera on here. So basically what I'm going to do, so I made those 4 marks, and you can just barely see them on there, really hard to see. But what I'm going to do is just very carefully, I'm going to start off cutting it here. And I got my fingers in here so it doesn't cut through the second piece in the back here. Just goes through the opening. I'm not going to cut all the way with the X-Acto knife. I'm just going to get it started, and I'm going to use the scissors to cut out the rest of that giant square, because with the X-Acto knife it's not going to be very accurate. So I'm going to use the scissors, I'm going to cut out that piece, and that'll be our next step. So here's basically what it should look like after you cut the screen part out, as well as the button for the push button, as well as the part where the camera pole is right there. And I know it does have a camera in the back as well, at least the new iPod Touch does, so you're obviously going to find out where that is and just mark where it is and cut the hole out the same way. So we're going to take our paper template here, slide it right in, and there you have your iPod Touch holder. So hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Like I said before, if you are making this for an iPhone or an older generation iPod Touch, I'm not sure if they messed around with the new measurements or anything like that, if they changed them at all, but you just want to look into that. If they did, then just make sure you are making it for the right size. And that's basically how to make a holder for either an iPhone or iPod Touch. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this tutorial, and I will have more videos coming in the future, so stay tuned, subscribe if you want to. Take care, I'll see you next time.